In every event, we prepare for the best that could happen. But what if there will be problems throughout the event? How do we stand the risk? Well, here we are to help you solve that problem. Watch, listen, and learn. So we're about to discuss to you contingency planning. It's essential to consider what could go wrong when planning an event and to prepare for some likely contingencies. Event contingency planning is crucial. A contingency plan is one that is created to deal with a situation that is not anticipated in the original plan. It's frequently used in risk management for a rare occurrence that could have disastrous implications, even though it's unlikely. The purpose of any contingency plan is to allow an organization to return to its daily operations as quickly as possible after an unforeseen event. The event manager should be ready to recognize risk and potential difficulties at the event, as well as how to avoid these problems and threats, and minimize the consequences if problems do arise despite best attempts to avoid them. In any scenario, it's critical to have preventative and contingency plans in place, as well as financial allocations for them. Event attendees' top concerns are safety and security, especially given the current state of affairs. Safety refers to protection of people from harm. Security refers to protection of property from damage or loss. Both are genuine problems that an event planner should take into account when planning, funding, and addressing the situation. The organizer must always learn, prepare, and take to heart the responsibility to protect people, property, reputation, and revenues. It's crucial to establish a safety and security team to help in assessing risk and potential issues during the event. The team must create an emergency management strategy, assess the possibility of threats, as well as evaluate the potential of safety and security breaches, as well as operational issues. Elements of the event that must be evaluated for safety, security, and other risks. Risk assessment. Risk management necessitates the use of contingency plans. They ensure that you have a backup plan in case something goes wrong or something unexpected occurs. The safety of those attending the event is always a top priority. The attendees and staff at the event will be in need of protection. Its goal is to keep the event environment safe and healthy. Competent staff that has knowledge of the event, the activities, the expected participants, and the site should conduct risk assessments. Hazard is something that has the potential to cause harm or injury to people, or loss or damage to property. Hazard could be physical, biological, chemical, ergonomic, or psychosocial. Risk is the potential hazard to become a reality. There are 5 steps approach in risk assessment. Number 1. Identify the hazard, how it could harm and who could be harmed by it. It also considers the potential consequences. Number 2. Assess the risk and scale the likelihood of the hazard as well as the severity of impact. Number 3. Develop controls and define ways to reduce the risk and act on it before the event. Number 4. Implement controls. Consider the most practical way to implement them. 5. Monitor and review. Include this in your task list before, during, and after the event, and take action right away if new hazards emerge. Venue and event site design. Before the event, have the safety and security team conduct a risk assessment of the venue and event site. Before and after the event manager walks through the event site to visualize how each of the event activities would go, identify potential risks, plan how to avoid them, and establish a contingency plan in case the worst happens. The goal is to keep everyone safe and healthy, including attendees and event employees. It is possible to eliminate hazards through brainstorming and identifying them. Seek assistance from the venue's management for any necessary adjustments. With venue management, discuss safety procedures, Know the fire safety and evacuation procedures for the venue. Check to see if the venue has a medical clinic or a first aid station. Determine its ability to deal with any potential emergencies. Examine the distance between it and the event site, as well as the option of having a satellite station closer to the event. Stage and other structures. Inspect the stage and any structures for the event that have been constructed or installed. Examine for problems that could endanger workers or performers. Examine the stage and scenery for stability, taking into account the equipment, people, and movement that will be present. Consider how the structure will be used and kept an eye out for any potential safety hazards. Special effect. If special effects and pyrotechnics will be used for the event, work only with licensed and experienced providers. Electrical connections. Meet with the venue management regarding the event's electrical power requirements. Together with the event electrical engineer, determine the power requirements to stage the event according to the event plan and evaluate available power supply. Crowd control. The main purpose of events is to gather people, but bringing a lot of people together can pose problems. When people are grouped together, the crowd takes a personality of its own. Event planners must keep this in mind and prepare for crowd control. Avoid activities that can cause uncontrollable and unsafe crowd movement. The following presents potentially dangerous crowd movements as well as suggestions on how to avoid them. Crowd crushed is caused by the compression of a crowd from a big space to a smaller and smaller area. To avoid this, they should anticipate crowd flow from one area to another by providing enough entrances and exits. Crowd craze or crowd pressure is caused by overexcitement, a competitive rush or push of a crowd towards a person or object. To avoid this, plan actions to keep the crowd from rushing towards someone or something. Crowd surge is a compression of a crowd toward a particular direction. To avoid this, plan event activities and event sequences in such a way that the crowd does not feel compelled to move in one direction. Crowd collapse happens when the people at the front of the crowd rush forward, causing some of them to trip or fall. To avoid this, entrances to the audience should be planned in a systematic manner. Queues should be well ordered and well managed. Crowd panic refers to the out-of-control movement to escape a real or perceived danger. To avoid this, prepare to have ready-to-use triggers that will activate emergency contingency plan as soon as an emergency circumstance arises. Preventing crowd movement from escalating to crisis proportions requires an attentive and well-prepared event team. Implement crowd control procedures from the moment the participants arrive, as they enter, and as they exit.
Transportation. Remain vigilant if participants' transportation is part of the event's plan. Only work with reliable transportation firms that keep their vehicles in good running condition. Make sure to have enough vehicles to transport all the participants and their belongings. Plan time of arrival and departure and stick to schedules. Plan your trip route ahead of time and avoid routes that are potentially dangerous. When traveling by land to ecological sites or small towns, anticipate the size of the vehicles that will be passing through secondary or tertiary routes. When traveling by air or sea, check the safety features of the vehicles. Have a contingency plan in case a change in travel plans is necessary in view of bad weather condition. For all travel, carefully evaluate the need for travel insurance for all the participants. It is always best to be covered for all uncertainties. Sanitation facilities and waste management. People are safer in clean environments not only from accidents but also from illness. In a crowded environment, sickness is spread quickly. This highlights the importance of having a good crowd control and human traffic plan in place. Cleanliness is the key in keeping the event site healthy environment. become very busy areas during events. Make sure that running water, soap, and tissue are always available. Hire a capable staff to clean and maintain cleanliness in the restrooms or discuss cleaning schedules with the venue administration. Anticipate what kind of waste will be accumulated at the event. Make sure that there are enough containers for waste collection. In public areas, arrange for several collection times during the day without disrupting event proceedings. Protection of intellectual property. Aside from protecting lives and physical property, there is also a concern for protecting intellectual property. For events that have a potential to be commercially viable or video recorded, include provision of cameras and video recording devices at the event. The security protocol must include a check on the audience luggage upon arrival. Removing security personnel must also be on the lookout for unscrupulous people to record the event. Being able to identify members of the event team, staff, and audience is one of the most important aspects of event security. Everyone involved in the event should be given suitable identification cards and passes. Problem analysis and contingency planning. Prepare for other event elements of the event besides safety and security. Examine the event plan and visualize what will happen as you prepare for the event, on the day of the event, and as the event is dismantled. For every event, prepare a prevention plan, a contingency plan, and a crisis management plan. Prevention plan, a plan to prevent safety violations and accidents from happening. Contingency plan, a plan which will minimize the effects of these problems in case these still do happen despite preparations made to prevent. And crisis management plan, in case the situation escalates to a full-blown crisis situation. The key here is to identify potential problems, preventative action, and contingent action. Identifying potential problems. Deviation in plans may be caused by lack of planning, unforeseen circumstances which point back to lack of planning, and uncontrollable circumstances which also point back to lack of planning. Although there are uncontrollable elements, particularly in the external environment, that might affect the event plan and outcome, the event manager is still responsible for anticipating the effect and planning for preventive and contingency action. Examine the event plan to identify potential issues and their likely causes. Understanding the most likely sources can aid in determining how the potential can be best avoided. The following can be helpful in the investigation. Objectives. Potential problem could be failure to achieve event objectives. Audience. Low attendance, overflow or overbook audience, and audience walkout are some of the potential problems in audience. Format or theme. Does not appeal to the target audience and difficult or costly to execute are some of the potential problems of form at theme. Venue. The potential problem of venue is that the venue might not be available on the event day. Registration. Slow registration process and lack of registration materials are some of the potential problems of registration. Atmosphere. Special effects do not function as planned. Program. There are times that guest is not available on the day of the event, and it goes over time. Preventative action. The goal of the event manager is to keep problems from arising. It may appear to be a difficult task, but it is necessary. An ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure, as the saying goes. Address the potential sources of the difficulties that have been detected as early as possible, far before the event day. Contingency plan. Determine not only what will be done if the problem arises, but also what event will trigger the contingency plan. times of stress, quick thinking is vital, but programmed thought and action is much better. Crisis Management Plan. An event crisis is a problem that has gone out of hand causing damage of serious magnitude. The crisis may cause harm or have a negative impact on people, property, or reputation. Clearly, the goal is to preserve lives, prevent injuries, and prevent property damage. Draft a plan that will be put into action if crisis happens at the event. First, create a crisis response team. This will include key event staff, security, and venue representatives. The following are the responsibilities that should be assigned to each team member. Information gathering. It is responsible for gathering information relevant to the crisis situation, including causes, extent of damage, casualties, agencies, or persons involved in other data. Liaison. Responsible for keeping communication and coordination between the event principals, the victims, and the other parties that have a stake in the crisis. Logistics. Responsible for sourcing materials, equipment, manpower, and other resources needed to alleviate the situation. Spokesperson. The one and only person designated to speak on behalf of the event principals. During an event, develop a plan for extreme situations such as fire, earthquake, bomb attack, panic, and illness outbreak. In addition, adequate training for event staff is required. The event team will be better prepared to handle adverse situations after receiving a training and safety procedures for earthquakes, bomb attacks, and panic attacks. Prompt action can save lives, prevent injury, minimize property damage, and consequently avoid damaged reputations.